My grandma had a wind-up gramophone, and I always used to get her to play this. And I'd say, "Is this our river?" And, "Did the man come from Dundee?" And she didn't laugh at me the way my dad would. She just said, very serious, as if I was a grown-up person, "I think it's the Mississippi. And I don't quite know where the man came from, but I expect it was the southern states of America, because his dad was a slave." And I'd say, "What's a slave?" And she'd tell me. And I'd say, "But that's terrible." And she'd say, yes it is. And she'd look so sad. When I was bigger and could understand, she'd say, "Don't think it's over. Don't believe them when they say it's over. The world's still full of slaves. Slaves to drugs, slaves to greed, slaves to power, and they're the worst. They think they're powerful, but they're so weak and helpless, and they cause so much suffering and damage." And she'd look out at the river flowing right past her window and say nothing. And then she'd say, very quiet-like, "And the river doesn't care. The river couldn't give a damn." My grandma made pictures of all the dead bodies that were washed up on our beach after the bridge fell in. And I said, "Grandma, is that really them?" "Depends what you mean by really," she'd say. Because I knew some of them were people she'd sketched while she was sitting beside Desperate Dan in the town centre. "So many people," she'd say. "So many people just being washed along and end up washed up, and don't let that happen to you. Promise you won't let that happen to you." And I'd promise. And I'd go back to my studying and she'd say, "The world doesn't need artists right now. The world needs engineers. The world needs people to work out how to use the power that flows past this window day and night so we can stop climate change." And I'd remember that when some boy in class had touched me up or told me all tits and no brain and girls don't make engineers, they just make babies. And I told Grandma, I don't want to make babies. I want to make wave power plants. And I cut off my hair and told them I was a lesbian, even though I didn't want to have sex with anybody. Not after Dad. But anyway, they thought I meant it and that put them off for a bit. But then they said I was unnatural. And I said, "Is that true, Grandma? Is that true?" She just picked up a framed photo on her mantelpiece and said, "You know who that is?" And I said, "Of course I do. That's you when you were a boy." And her eyes filled with tears. And mine did too. And we were crying together, and then she said, "These are good tears." And they were. And when we weren't allowed to go out, it was so good at first, because I didn't have to face them, and I could study anyway, and she'd say, "I'm so proud of you. You'll make such a good engineer." And when she got ill, she said, "Don't phone. Not yet. I'll be through this soon. Don't be afraid," she said. But I was afraid. And when I looked in next morning, she was gone. And I'm sitting here looking out at the river, and it don't care. And I could just walk right out into it and it wouldn't care. It would just carry me along and wash me up somewhere. And the house is empty now. And I don't know what to do. And I sit. And I sit. And the water passes, and I remembered I promised. So in the end, I know. I locked the door on the empty house, and I turned my back on the river, and I crossed the bridge to the city.